The thing about the American highway, the real, deep-down truth of it, is that it's a place of forgetting. You get on I-10 out of El Paso, heading east into Texas. And the world you left behind, the mortgage, the arguments, the quiet disappointment in your wife's eyes, it all just bleeds out into the scrubland. The engine's hum becomes your only mantra, the white line a hypnotist's pendulum swinging you into a trance. Your past is the town you just passed. Your future is the next mile marker. There is only the now of the road. This run was a standard one, a load of automotive parts from a warehouse in El Paso, destined for a distribution center in Jacksonville, Florida. 48 hours, mostly on I-10, the spinal cord of the southern United States. I'd done it a dozen times. You learn the rhythm of it. The frantic energy of El Paso gives way to the stark beauty of West Texas, which then softens into the rolling hills around San Antonio, before flattening out into the piney woods and eventual swampland of the Gulf Coast. It's a journey through different versions of America, all viewed from the same 8-foot-wide cockpit. My rig was a 2020 Peterbilt 579, a damn fine machine. I called her Silver Lady. She was metallic silver with a long nose hood, a sleeper cab that was my home away from home, and a 53-foot drive-in trailer hitched behind her. She was polished to a shine, a point of pride. In this life, your truck is all you have. It's your shelter, your office, your identity. You treat it better than you treat yourself. That morning had been perfect. A crisp, blue-ski dawn over the Franklin Mountains, the air still cool and smelling of desert rain. I'd gotten an early start, fueled up on bitter truck stop coffee and a greasy breakfast burrito. The paperwork was in order, the load was secured, and the satellite radio was tuned to a classic rock station. For the first time in weeks, I felt a semblance of peace. The road does that sometimes. It offers a blank slate. The traffic was light leaving the city. Soon, the sprawl of El Paso receded in my tall side mirrors, replaced by the vast, open expanse of the Chihuahuan Desert. The landscape here is brutal and honest. There are no lies out there, just some bleached rock, thorny shrubs, and mountains that look like God took a giant rake to the earth. The highway itself is a marvel of engineering, a straight shot for miles and miles, daring you to test its limits. I settled into the groove, left hand on the wheel, right arm resting on the center console. The speedometer hovered at a steady 68 miles per hour, the sweet spot for fuel efficiency. I scanned the road ahead, a habit beaten into me by a million miles of driving. But out here, the skin is different. There's so little to see. A distant truck, a lone car, maybe a hawk circling high overhead. Your mind starts to fill in the silence. I thought about the last time I was home. It was my daughter's 7th birthday. I'd driven through the night to make it, walking in with a giant teddy bear from a Walmart in Oklahoma. The look on her face was worth every second of fatigue. But later, my wife, Sarah, had that tired look. "You missed her school play," she'd said, not as an accusation, but as a simple, painful fact. And she was right. I'm always missing something. The road gives you a life, but it takes one away in equal measure. The first 100 miles melted away. Van Horn came and went, just a blur of gas stations and fast food signs. I was deep in the zone, the hypnotic state where hours feel like minutes. My mind replayed old arguments, imagined better responses, constructed fantasies of a life where I had a 9-to-5 job and was home for dinner every night. It's a useless exercise, but it passes the time. It was just past noon, the sun a fierce white coin in a bleached blue sky, when I first noticed him. A glint of silver in my West Coast mirror. Another Peterbilt. No big deal. We are a common breed out here. But something made me look again a few minutes later. He was still there, hanging back about a quarter of a mile. Same model, same silver paint, same 53-foot trailer. A twin to my Silver Lady. I remember thinking, huh, nice truck. And then I turned up the radio and forgot all about him. The next time I checked my mirrors, maybe 20 minutes later, he was still there. The same distance. It was odd, but not alarming. Sometimes you get a runner, another truck doing the same pace, and you play a silent game of leapfrog across state lines. You become temporary, anonymous companions. But this guy wasn't overtaking. He wasn't falling back. He was just there. I decided to test it. I eased my foot off the accelerator, letting my speed bleed off slowly. 65, 64, 63. I kept my eyes glued to the mirror. The silver truck maintained its distance for a moment, then its own front end dipped slightly. Its brake lights didn't flash, but it was definitely slowing down, matching my speed exactly. A coincidence, surely. He was probably just adjusting his cruise control. I pushed the pedal down, accelerating back to 68, then pushing to 70. The engine of my Peterbilt responded with a confident growl. I watched the mirror. Without hesitation, the other truck surged forward, closing the gap until it was, once again, precisely a quarter mile behind me. My skin prickled. This was no longer a coincidence. To anyone else, it would seem like nothing. But out here, on the dead straight stretches of I-10, you develop a sixth sense for the rhythm of the road. This was a break in the rhythm. It was an echo. A perfect, unwavering echo. I tried to shake the feeling. I told myself I was being paranoid, that the loneliness and the monotony were getting to me. I'd heard stories of drivers getting cabin fever, seeing things that weren't there. I decided on a more deliberate test. I flicked my turn signal on, even though there was no one to signal for, and I gently drifted into the left lane. The highway was empty in both directions for as far as I could see. I held the lane for a count of 10, then signaled right and moved back. My heart started to thump a little harder against my ribs. The silver truck in the mirror had done the exact same thing. A perfect, mimicked lane change. Same timing. Same smooth arc. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. This was wrong. This was deeply wrong. I looked at my own hands on the wheel, seeing the white of my knuckles. Who was in that truck? Was it some kind of automated convoy system I hadn't heard about? A prank? It didn't feel like a prank. It felt predatory. I flipped down my sun visor, peering into the small rectangular mirror there, trying to get a better look. But the distance was too great. I could only make out the silhouette of a driver in the cab, a dark shape against the glare of the windshield. Was he looking back at me? The idea was absurd, but it filled me with a primitive dread. For the next hour, I conducted a silent, desperate experiment. I tapped my brakes rhythmically, two short, one long. The following truck's brake lights flashed in the same pattern. I turned on my fog lights for a minute, then off. Its fog lights winked on and off in perfect sync. It was like driving in front of a malevolent mirror, one that reflected not what was, but what is, with a half-second delay. The peace I'd felt earlier was gone, replaced by a crawling, escalating fear. The vast, empty landscape outside no longer felt freeing. It felt like a trap, a stage for this insane pantomime. As I approached the outskirts of Odessa, the traffic began to pick up slightly. A few four-wheelers zipped past, and I saw a couple of other rigs on the other side of the median. The presence of other people should have been a comfort, but it only heightened my anxiety. What would they think if they saw this? Would they even notice? I had a wild, desperate idea. Maybe I could lure him closer, force an interaction in a more public place. I took the exit for a massive truck stop just outside of town, a place I knew well. It had a huge fueling area, a diner, and a store. There would be people, witnesses. I signaled early and took the ramp slowly, my eyes fixed on my mirrors. The silver truck took the same exit. My mouth went dry. He was following me off the highway. This was no longer a highway phenomenon. This was personal. I pulled into the truck stop, navigating the labyrinth of lanes, and found a spot at the far end of the fuel island. I shut off the engine. The sudden silence was deafening. I watched as the silver truck pulled in, not to fuel, but into an empty row of parking spots about 100 yards away, facing me. It sat there, idling, a perfect, gleaming replica of my own rig. This was my chance. I grabbed my baseball cap from the passenger seat, pulled it low over my eyes, and swung open my door. The Texas heat hit me like a physical blow, dry and heavy. I jumped down from the cab, my boots crunching on the gravel-strewn asphalt. I started walking towards the diner, but my entire focus was on the truck behind me. I could feel its presence, a cold spot in the baking heat. I dared a glance over my shoulder. The driver's side door of the silver truck remained shut. The dark silhouette was still inside. I changed course. I wasn't going to the diner. I was going to confront him. My heart was a jackhammer in my chest. What would I even say? Why are you following me? It sounded so pathetic. I walked with purpose, my strides long and angry. As I got closer, maybe 50 yards away, the silver truck's engine revved, a sound I knew as well as my own heartbeat. It wasn't an aggressive roar, just a simple, clean rev. Then, with a smooth, quiet motion, it pulled out of the parking spot and began to roll forward. Not towards the exit, but towards me. I froze in the middle of the lane. It was coming right at me. For a terrifying second, I thought it was going to run me down. But it slowed to a crawl, maintaining a distance of about 20 feet. The windshield was still a glare of reflected sky. I couldn't see the driver. I took a step forward. The truck crept forward, maintaining the gap. I stopped. It stopped, Hey, I shouted, my voice rough and alien in the open air. What the hell is your problem? There was no answer. The truck just sat there, humming. It was toying with me. I took a few frantic steps towards it, and it immediately rolled backward, perfectly matching my pace. It was the same game as on the highway, but now it was intimate, threatening. This thing, whatever it was, had me in its sights. A car honked from behind me, a traveler trying to get to a fuel pump. The spell was broken. The silver truck, seeing the interruption, smoothly turned and drove towards the highway on-ramp, merging back into the flow of traffic and disappearing. I stood there, shaking, soaked in a cold sweat despite the heat. I had gotten my answer. This was no coincidence, and it wasn't over. I didn't get any fuel. I didn't get any food. I just walked back to my truck on unsteady legs, got in, and locked the doors. The cab, usually my sanctuary, felt like a glass box. I was exposed. I started the engine, the familiar rumble doing little to calm my nerves. I had to keep moving. Stopping felt like dying. As I merged back onto I-10, my eyes constantly darted to the mirrors, half expecting to see him slide back into place. For the first 30 minutes, he was gone. The road behind me was a random assortment of vehicles. I began to breathe a little easier. Maybe I'd scared him off. Maybe it was just some asshole who'd had his fun and moved on. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. The precision of the mimicry, the silent, predatory patience, it was something else. And then, as the city of Midland faded behind me and the land opened up again, I saw it. A silver speck in the mirror, growing steadily larger. My heart sank. He was back. He had been waiting. This time, the fear was different. It was a cold, heavy certainty. This thing was attached to me. I was its focus. As I drove, a fragment of memory surfaced, something I'd heard years ago in a smoky truck stop diner near Tucson. An old-timer, his face a roadmap of a hard life, talking about the echo rigs of the Texas interstates. He'd said they were ghosts, or omens, that they copied you until you broke the pattern. And if you ever stopped, if you ever let it pull up beside you. I couldn't remember the rest. Or maybe I dismissed it as drunk nonsense at the time. Now, it felt like the most important information in the world. I keyed my CB radio, the ancient chatter of the trucking world, usually a background noise I ignored. Breaker 19, eastbound on I-10, anybody got a copy? I said, my voice tighter than I wanted. A crackle of static, then a drawl came back. Go ahead, eastbound, you're coming in. Yeah, I started, feeling foolish. This might sound crazy, but I've got a silver Pete, looks just like mine, been mirroring my moves for the last couple 100 miles. Anyone know anything about that? The silence on the channel was profound. Then, a different voice, older, graver, cut in. You see the copy truck, son. The name hit me like a physical blow. The what? Copy truck, the old voice repeated. Seen it once, back in '98, out near Amarillo. It's an old story. It picks a driver and it sticks. Mimics everything. What does it want? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Another pause. They say if you stop, it stops with you. It pulls up alongside. And if you're fool enough to get out, you'll see yourself behind its wheel. And when you look back at your own cab, it'll be empty, like you never existed. A burst of static and laughter from another driver. Ah, hell, Donnie, you're filling the kid's head with spook stories. But the old-timer, Donnie, didn't laugh. His voice was dead serious. It ain't a story. You run, son. You hear me? You don't stop. You don't sleep. You run until dawn or until you cross running water. It can't cross running water. You just run. The channel dissolved into an argument about ghosts and government experiments. I clicked the mic off. My hands were trembling. Folklore, superstition. But it lined up perfectly with what was happening to me. It had a name. The copy truck. And the consequence. Seeing yourself. An empty cab. It was too specific, too horrifying to be a simple legend. It was a warning. The sun began its slow descent, painting the western sky in violent shades of orange and purple. The beauty of it was lost on me. The silver truck was my constant companion, a malevolent shadow in the deepening twilight. The old-timer's words echoed in my head. You run. You don't stop. You don't sleep. I pushed Silver Lady harder, nudging the speedometer to 75, then 78. The copy truck matched me effortlessly. It was like it was powered by my own fear, feeding on it. The game was over. This was a chase, even if the pursuer never changed its distance. Darkness fell, a thick, inky blackness only broken by the twin cones of my headlights and the distant, mocking stars of his. The isolation was absolute. The other traffic had thinned to almost nothing. It was just him and me, racing through the Texas night. My eyes were gritty with fatigue. My back ached. The coffee I'd been chugging had left me jittery and nauseous. I started talking to myself. A stream of consciousness babbled to fight the silence and the terror. Okay, just make it to San Antonio. That's running water. The river's there. He said running water. Just get to San Antonio. But San Antonio was hours away. My fuel gauge was dipping towards a quarter tank. I would have to stop. The thought sent a fresh wave of panic through me. I considered my options. I could take an exit, try to lose him on surface roads. But what if he followed me into some small town? What then? I could call the police. And say what? Hello, officer, there's a truck that looks like mine following the rules of the road behind me. They'd think I was hideout. The copy truck began to change its behavior. It started to close the gap, slowly, inexorably, from a quarter mile to an eighth to a few hundred feet. I could now clearly see the headlights, the shape of the grille. It was riding my bumper. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. I was sweating despite the AC being on full blast. It stayed there, right on my tail, for what felt like an eternity. Then, without warning, it flipped its high beams on. The world in my mirrors vanished, replaced by a blinding, painful wall of white light. I yelled, flinching away from the glare. It was an act of aggression. It was trying to force me off the road, to make me make a mistake. I slammed my hand on the dash, fumbling for the mirror control, angling them away so I wouldn't be blinded. I was driving half blind now, my world reduced to the patch of road directly in front of me, with a phantom of light haunting my periphery. This was its way of wearing me down. It was breaking me, piece by piece. I don't know how long I drove like that. Time lost all meaning. It was a waking nightmare of light and noise and terror. My body was screaming for rest. My mind was fraying at the edges. I started seeing things in the darkness at the side of the road, pale figures waving, the silver truck parked and waiting. I was hallucinating from fatigue and fear. I knew I couldn't go on much longer. The next truck stop, the next rest area. I would have to risk it. I was running out of road, and I was running out of me. A green sign glowed in my headlights. Rest area, 1 mile. It was a decision point. My fuel was now deep into the red. My eyes felt like they were full of sand. I was a danger to myself and everyone on the road. The copy truck still sat on my bumper, its high beams searing into my soul. The old-timer's warning word with basic survival instinct. Don't stop. But if I didn't stop, I would pass out at the wheel and kill myself. Was that what it wanted? A different, more chilling thought occurred to me. Maybe it didn't want me dead. Maybe it wanted me to stop. It needed me to complete the story, to play my part in the folklore. I signaled and took the ramp. The copy truck followed, its lights still blazing. The rest area was a simple loop with a small brick building for restrooms and a dozen or so parking spots for trucks. It was poorly lit, with long, deep shadows between the pools of jaundiced yellow light from the sodium lamps. 2 other rigs were parked at the far end, their cabs dark. It was hardly the safe, public space I'd hoped for. I drove slowly around the loop, my heart hammering. I had to make a choice. I could park near the other trucks, maybe bang on a door and beg for help. But what would I say? And would I be putting someone else in danger? Or, I could face this. I could see the story through. A terrible, morbid curiosity began to mix with the fear. What would I see? Was it really me in that cab? Was it a doppelganger? A ghost? The culmination of all my failures, my absences, my broken promises, given for a man chasing me down on a Texas highway. The idea was insane, but in that moment, it made a twisted kind of sense. I made my decision. I pulled Silver Lady into an isolated spot at the very back of the lot, away from the other trucks, under a broken light. I turned off the engine. The silence was immediate and absolute. I watched in the mirror as the copy truck pulled in beside me, not directly adjacent, but at an angle in front, perfectly positioning its driver's side to mine. Its headlights and engine died, plunging the area around us into near darkness. This was it. The moment the legend described. My breath fogged in the air before me. I was cold, so cold. I sat there for what felt like an hour, just staring at the dark cab of the other truck. I could see the silhouette inside, motionless, waiting. I had to know. I had to see. My hand moved to the door handle. It felt like moving through syrup. Every cell in my body screamed at me not to do this. But I was trapped. This was my crossroads. With a final, shuddering breath, I pushed the door open and stepped down onto the asphalt. The night air was cold and still, the only sound the distant hum of the highway. My legs felt like rubber. I turned slowly, my entire being focused on the driver's side window of the copy truck. It was rolled up, and in the faint, refracted light from the distant restroom building, I could see the figure inside. It was me. Not a rough approximation. Not a guy who looked like me. It was me. He was wearing the same faded denim jacket, the same baseball cap. His head was turned, and he was looking directly at me. I saw the fatigue in my own eyes, the stubble on my own jaw, the same grim set of my own mouth. It was like looking into a mirror, but a mirror that was alive, that was separate from me. Our eyes met. His were empty, not evil, not angry, just hollow. A deep, profound nothingness that was more terrifying than any monster I could imagine. He didn't smile. He didn't move. He just stared. And in that stare, I felt everything I was, my memories, my love for my daughter, my regrets being siphoned away into that void. The old-timer's story screamed in my mind. You'll see yourself behind its wheel. And when you look back at your own cab, it'll be empty. My head whipped around. I looked back at my silver lady. The driver's seat was empty. The cab was dark, a silent, abandoned shell. A sob caught in my throat. It was true. It was all true. I was out here. I was the one who had gotten out. I was the reflection. I looked back at the copy truck, at the hollow man who was me. He slowly, deliberately, raised his hand and placed it on the steering wheel. A claim, a possession. He was the driver now. I was the echo. And then, with a quiet, electric whir, the copy truck's engine started. Its headlights remained off, but it began to pull away. It rolled smoothly out of the parking spot and onto the ramp, merging back onto I-10 East, heading towards Jacksonville, towards my life, towards my daughter. I stood there, frozen, watching my own taillights disappear into the night. I was alone, truly alone. The two other trucks in the lot started their engines, their drivers unaware of the transaction that had just taken place. One of them pulled out, his headlights sweeping over me. He didn't see me. I was a ghost. I was a story told on the CB radio. I am still here, at this rest area. I don't sleep. I don't eat. I just watch the trucks come and go. Sometimes, at night, I see a silver Peterbilt pass by on the highway, and I wonder if the driver inside is looking into the darkness, seeing a faint shape standing by the road, and feeling a cold dread he can't explain. I was a driver. Now I am a warning. Run. Just run. And whatever you do, never ever stop.